All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We just have a few more people popping into the waiting room, so I'm letting those students in as well. And you should be able to see my screen here. You are in session 2 of our Gearing Up for Graduate Studies series. I'm just going to, another one popping in. Okay, you are welcome to turn your video on if you're comfortable, your audio on. This is more informal. This is really an opportunity for you to get your questions answered. And luckily, we do have, I'm going to mute, there we go. There's just one background noise there. We do have a special guest tonight, which is great. Okay, so let's get started. A few quick little housekeeping items. The chat feature is available, so if you have a question, by all means, put that through the chat. Or again, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and just ask your question. We may or may not have met already, but my name is Amber, and I am the recruitment coordinator here at the Faculty of Education, and I am able to speak to any of our graduate programs that we offer. These sessions are primarily driven to applicants that are interested in our MPED program. So hopefully tonight you're here because you're interested in the MPED, or potentially you have applied and you're waiting to hear back. And I'm lucky to also have Denise here with me. So Denise, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself if you'd like, but she is our representative of the current student population.
Hi, everybody. My name is Denise, and Amber, thank you so much for having me here tonight. And like Amber said, I am in the graduate studies. I'm in the MPED program, which I'll speak to a little bit more later. I'm in year 1, and it's great to be here with you all tonight. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Denise. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here. I'd just like to open up with a little bit of a poll because it helps us get an insight of who is all with us. So let me launch this here, and just asking out of curiosity, what stream are you looking at taking, or maybe that you've applied to, and how long have you been away from studies? So that should pop up. Can we see that there?
I've got it. Yeah.
Perfect. Yep, I can see a few submissions coming in. Yeah, so please feel free. Again, we are talking tonight, we're really focusing on returning to school. So that's why we're curious how long people have been away from school. Don't be shy to let us know. That we have students from a variety of different backgrounds. So go ahead, we'll give that a couple more seconds here. Okay, that's a good representation. So we'll end that so we can see. So we do have, oh, someone popped in here, a large group from applied behavior analysis. Perfect. Okay. We have a few variety, and we're missing a few. TESOL, okay, perfect. And what really interests me is that most students here have been away from school for over 10 years, or the majority is 5 to 10 years or more. So that's great. That is, again, common to what we see, and that's really what we want to help you feel comfortable with tonight, in case that is something you're thinking about. So I'm going to bring this back up here, and I'm really going to turn this over to Denise to talk a little bit more, but I've put some questions here on the slide if you feel like sticking to those, if you want to go off topic a little bit. But I think some of the questions we have, are just about preparing, workload, anything like that you want to share. So I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I must say the MPED program from Western is fantastic. Right from when you get your acceptance letter to your orientation meeting to your first class, it's very straightforward, very accommodating. Everybody is there to help you before, during, and even after, I've heard. So I'm in the MPED program for early childhood studies. I am a registered ECE. I just finished actually my undergrad last year and enrolled in the MPED program straight from it. However, before that, I had been away from studies for probably 15 years or so. So that was a big change for me, and it's still fairly new because my undergrad was only a 2-year program due to my ECE credentials already. So the reason I chose the MPED program was just to further my education with being in the educational field, with all of the curriculum and the pedagogy coming. I know that BC's got a great pedagogical network, and Ontario's coming right up with that. I wanted to be able to further my education better and have the knowledge to move forward, to use that pedagogist influence in my classrooms and moving forward. Workload wise, again, it's pretty straightforward. With my courses, you get the full course load right up front, so you know what you're in for. It's everybody knows work-life balance, of course, and so it's just finding that time. Mine is completely online, so that's pretty nice. I can time management is definitely a key to have for online studies, but you have also the flexibility because the you've got all of your information right at the beginning of the course, so you can plan, you can execute, and then when life throws you a little curveball, like when your children have to come home from school because their class gets shut down and you no longer have that extra time, you can adjust and you can move your studies around. Just meet your timelines. Be open and honest with yourself about how much work you plan on putting in, and it all seems to get done. The professors I've had have always been so kind and compassionate and generous. If you know if you're struggling, don't pretend you know it. Let them know, and they are there to help you along the way. We are all lifelong learners for sure, and the professors know that. So it's just finding that balance, finding that commitment. It's a great experience for sure. And my cohort, all cohorts are different for sure, but with the MPED program, you're with your cohort from start to finish, which is great because you meet new people, you're with them in every semester, you get to build a relationship. I know that every course is different, but we have running discourses back and forth in our forums and whatnot, and you learn about these people, and we do Zoom meetings, and we learn about them professionally, we learn about them personally. It's sort of your new networking group. It's your new family. And I know most of us are tired and Zoom fatigued and what have you, but it's a great opportunity to bounce ideas off of each other as well. And I think that you get a more rich education when you unpack the materials that you're learning with your cohort. It's not new people each semester. You're with them. You've already built that foundation and they're moving along with you. And it complements everybody really. So I can't speak highly enough about the cohorts, about the professors, about the course materials. I know that each MPED program is different, but being in a few different meetings with others, just with the graduate society and stuff like that, it seems to be the general consensus with all of the programs that these are how they're run, and it's great. It's fantastic.
That's perfect. Thank you, Denise. And it kind of reminds me, I should have mentioned as well, I actually graduated as well from the MPED. So I graduated in 2019, but I graduated from the equity stream. So that's why it's also really great to have Denise here too, because you're bringing in some things that are different from the ECE stream. So like she said, each professor will have a unique teaching style, different learning. So you mentioned Zoom meetings. So I'm curious about that because with our cohort, again, this was 2017 to 2019, we didn't really have very many synchronous sessions at all because the program primarily is told, we tell to students, it is asynchronous, you don't have to dedicate certain time, but do you mind expanding on that a little bit?
Sure. So it is, it's 100% asynchronous. In what I think our professors are trying to do is provide those opportunities for conversation, for discourse, for asking questions. And it's like my husband is an elementary school teacher, and there's no dumb question. And if you have that question, chances are other people in the class or cohort have that exact same question. So sometimes it's just easier to have a meeting. I'm doing curriculum in abundance right now, and we have 4 Zoom sessions that we have the opportunity to join. It's not graded, it's not part of the syllabus, but they're there, they're available. And I've honestly benefited from each and every one of them. It doesn't give you, it's not any extra course material or anything, but it could be a question from last week's readings that you're still sitting with and pondering. And so it gives everybody a chance to meet and to ask those questions. The professor is there in the Zoom meeting as well. So it may not be like that for every session. And perhaps it's been like that more because of COVID, and but 100% asynchronous online. You've got all of your materials, and you've got your marks come from your assignments, and discussion questions perhaps, and whatnot. But I think if you have the opportunity to do those Zoom meetings, it's a great chance to see what everybody else may be struggling with or may have different thoughts on. And it broadens it broadens your thoughts, I believe.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. That's great. And one question I wanted to ask you about this, when we talk about workload and you're mentioning this, so we tell students on average to prepare for about 10 to 15 hours of work per week. So I've
Sure.
talked about when I was in the program, I kind of found certain days that I allocated for that, like maybe Sunday mornings, I would do my readings and my posts, and then I'd visit back, do the forum posts a couple times throughout the week. So I'm just curious, are you willing to share kind of how you divvy up that workload, what that looks like?
Sure. I did my undergrad online as well. And so I learned how to time manage a bit, and I learned about procrastination and the cause and effects of that. And I think it's a great chance, like when you get your course materials, you sit down, you look at when your major assignments are due, and you work backwards from that. You look at when your forum posts are due, and you work back from that. I always try to get my forum posts posted within the first couple of days of the week, because not only does that give other members in my cohort something to read, but it gives me a chance to know that that's finished and that I can work on the responses and everything else. I tried allocating 2 hours every day, and I found that sometimes that didn't work because we were off to karate or hockey or something, and all of a sudden it was the end of the week and I'm struggling, going, oh no, this is due in 3 hours. So I try to, I do Sunday mornings. I try to do a good chunk of that when everybody's sort of doing their own thing around the house. And I'm not currently working right now, so I have that bit of extra flexibility. But when I was working, I actually used to get up an hour before I would normally get up, and that was my coffee and reading time. And then I'd be able to sit with those readings throughout the day, and then maybe write a few things later in the evening. So I think it's whatever works for you, but work backwards from the due dates or from when they're due, and make sure you give yourself enough time for not only the readings, your writings, your posts, your thoughts, but also for those what ifs. Like, what if you wanted to get this done by the Friday, it's due on the Sunday? Is that going to give you enough time if something catastrophic happens in between those times? So I think it's just making sure play to your strengths, be honest with yourself, know what you're capable of doing, and commit.
Perfect, perfect. And one other question that's popping up too while we're talking, if anyone else has any questions specifically for Denise, please feel free to put these in the chat as well. But we talked a little bit about this last week when we were talking about getting used to an online learning environment. And I think a fear maybe for people returning to school is, what are those assignments going to look like? I haven't written a paper in 10 years. I haven't written an essay in 15 years. So can you touch a little bit on that and how you found that?
Sure. So I that was one of the things, writing the papers. Most professors are looking for APA format. And I think that, again, it's being honest with yourself, especially if you haven't been in the educational stream for a long time. Things have definitely changed 100%, but there are great online tools. There's great resources from the university. I know the one thing I treated myself to, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's the publication manual. And this is my holy grail of writing. It's everything you need to know. It's got tabs. It's about writing, grammar, formats, the principles. It is everything you need to know about how to write a paper successfully, and how to submit it for optimal marks. And that is something that really benefited me, because I'm used to just writing things down. I'm not used to format. I'm not used to professional presentation, things like that. So knowing that, and again, reaching out to the library services, reaching out to support, reaching out to your professor, to your classmates. Don't be afraid to not know the answer. The very first question in this class I'm doing right now, the professor asked, "What is pedagogy?" And as future pedagogists, we should know this answer. But the answer is there's actually no answer for that right now. It's more of how is pedagogy formed, and how do we create pedagogy in the classroom. So it's okay to not know the answer, and it's okay to say I don't know, because you will get a lot further by asking for the help as opposed to just assuming you know how to do it. So I think that the publication manual is 100% a great resource. I encourage anybody who can get it to do it, and reaching out for your additional resources. It's not as scary as it sounds. If writing comes natural to you, it will flow, and then you just need to tweak it a little bit, as per your. And I also think one thing I do is I try to get a rough draft, or I try to get points down, and I submit that early to make sure I'm on the right track of what the professor is looking for. They have always been fantastic for feedback and constructiveness, and I think that that's also a great tool. Submit a writing sample, submit your thoughts and ideas, and build from there, because they've always got great ideas to help you expand your points.
Perfect. Yeah, that's super helpful. And I'm so glad you shared that manual. That's great.
It's great.
Right. I think there's a message here.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Can you see that,
I
Denise?
can.
Perfect.
I did. I found the workload was fairly evenly distributed. There are times it's normally a 12-week course, so you might have 1 or 2 weeks where you do have those 30% assignments that are due on top of your readings. I have found that the readings are normally lighter the week of a major assignment that's due. Not always the case, but again, you know those 12 weeks right on day one. I encourage everybody to go through those 12 weeks, look at where your heavy weeks might lie, even try and do a reading early if you can. Start working on things, start planning things. Peaks and valleys, yes and no. It's again, it's fairly evenly distributed. With the exception, you've got usually your reading week. We have our March break coming up next week. So even though nobody else has it, we've got our reading week and what have you. So it'll be a nice time to sort of play catch up and go back to maybe some of the posts I didn't get to reading from my classmates and stuff. But for the 12 weeks that you're in it, I would say, yeah, definitely between 10 to 15 hours a week. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but not often.
Perfect.
Amber, did you find that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And you bring up a good point with the timeline. So you have that in advance. And just something to be aware of is the fall and winter, those are 12-week courses. So if you do the math, I think usually you have like December and sometime in April that you're going to be out of classes. And then in the summer, it is a little bit heavier because they're 12-week courses condensed to 8 weeks. So
ours are 6. Ours are 6 weeks.
6
we have
weeks.
2 sessions that are 6-week classes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in equity, they were 8 weeks for the summer. So you like sometimes if you're a practicing teacher, like that works out well because those may be times where you have a bit more room, but just something to be aware of as well. But again, you have all those resources in advance. And like Denise said, for the 12-week courses, I'd say I found that usually you had like 3 big assignments and then you have your weekly commitments. And then when it came to the summer, maybe there was a midterm and a final. So maybe one less assignment, but they're going to be weighted a little heavier. So something to keep in mind, but yeah, that's great. And we were talking about papers. So this made me want to ask this. We talked about this a little bit last week. So I thought maybe, again, you could give another stream's perception of this, but what have I know you're only in your second course, but what have your assignments been so far? So I know for me, for equity, I had a large portion of them were papers, but we also did some where we recorded like mini lecture series that we presented to our peers. So some like video. We
Yes.
did a little bit of blogging. I know this is up to the professor, but is there anything else, or do you know what's coming down the pipe, or your
Sure.
capstone you want to talk?
So right now I'm working with a classmate. We're doing a collaborative research project, and it can be either a 1,500-word essay or a multimodal presentation. So we've chosen the multimodal because we're not experienced with it. We're great at writing papers, but we have no idea how to insert a YouTube slide into a slide deck and things like that. So we wanted to try it. We were fully honest with our professor and said, we want to give this a go. We have no idea how it's going to work. And she said she can't wait for the hit or miss. So it's great. So most of my for the last 2 semesters, I've had 2 30% assignments with 4 10% conversation starters and forums. And I know that a lot of times in the undergrad, your discussion posts and whatnot may equal 10% of your final grade, and that's where that's sort of your last minute whatever you need to do. And these conversation starters are actually, they're great. They're well worth the time and effort to put into them, because again, that's where you get your conversation started with friends. That's where you get a more in-depth and rich learning of the reading you've read. And we're working on right now going back and rereading some of the posts and seeing if we have a different thought, a different outcome now that we've read other materials from the book. The one assignment that I'm working on right now is traditional scholars and theorists in curriculum. And it's great because as an ACE, I've studied Piaget, I've studied Vygotsky, I've studied Dewey, I've done it all, but now we're learning why we've studied it, why they're the founders, and what does that mean moving forward. And I think one thing we're building into our presentation is how sometimes traditions that get passed on aren't the exact tradition that it started with. It's like a recipe, your great grandmother's scone recipe. It starts like this, and then your grandmother changed the currants to blueberries because that's what she had at the time, but it's still a scone. And then your mom changed it to vegan margarine because of an allergic reaction, but it's still a scone. And then when it gets to you, it's a better scone because it doesn't have currants in it or lard and things like that, but it's still a scone. And that's just like traditions, curriculum traditions. They started as something, but as everybody knows, I mean, my children are still showing me things on iPads and phones and stuff that I've got no clue about. But as evolution happens, things need to change to accommodate society and to accommodate how we learn and where we learn. Especially over the past year, we've seen that technology is quintessential in our lifestyle now. So it may not be exactly how it's not the scientific objective that Piaget wanted, but it's still curriculum. It's just curriculum in our time. And I think that's what is a great thing to remember when you're studying and when you're learning is we've all learned it, especially for those of you who haven't been a student for a long time. You may have learned it differently. You may have studied differently. You may have been taught differently. Be open to change. Be open to new thoughts, to new processes, because that's what we do. We are here to change the world.
For sure. That's great. Thank you. We got a few little more technical questions that popped in there. So I can
Sure.
answer those, don't worry. So transfer credit, great question. So the MPED is made up of 8 credits. So you're doing 4 credits per year. So for that reason, we typically do not grant transfer credit. And it also has to do with that cohort nature. So as Denise was mentioning, you have that cohort of maybe 20 like-minded students you're going to travel with. And because of that structure, it's not favorable to have students coming, going, etc. So Generally speaking, we would not grant transfer credit for the MPED program, just so you know. And then with financial information, we'll actually be running a session about this in a couple of weeks, so feel free to pop into that one. But generally speaking, again, this is an online program. Yes, this is entirely online. So our students are typically working while completing the program. So for that reason, it doesn't have traditional funding packages. If you're looking for a master's with a funding package, that would be our on-site Masters of Arts program. Okay. Yeah, 4 credits per year, 8 credits total to complete. It's a 2-year program. Okay, so we'll keep going because I know we don't have too much more time. I try to wrap these up within about 30 or so minutes, but feel free to hang around if you have questions. Some of this we've already covered, which is great, but I just wanted to throw a few tips up here about preparing. So again, to ease those, any anxieties or fears you may have. And one biggest one is to strengthen your time management skills. So this is, Denise has already touched upon this, and it's huge. Where can you pull those 10 to 15 hours from now? So if you've already got an offer, or you're sure that this is something you want to do, start carving that out. If it is a matter of waking up an hour early and maybe start reading on, current issues or topics or things that may pique your interest around where you'll be studying, the more you can get yourself into that routine, more so over the summer, etc., the more September will not come as a shock for you. Creating a support system. So this is within your classmates. As Denise mentioned, that cohort is there for you. Your professors are there for you. But also, if you're working full time, make sure your employers know that this is something you're doing. I'm sure you'll be using them as your references, but make sure that they know that you're able to maintain that work-life balance on top of study as well, and make sure that you have that support system because it will make it a lot easier. Another mention there is education outside of the classroom. So what resources can help you? I mentioned APA, so that was perfect that you showed us that book, because if that's a fear you have, go get that. Go have that right beside you on your desk so you don't have any issues, or download some resources. Get familiar with what's kind of going on in the world about that topic. If it's equity, obviously, you're going to come in right away and people are going to have things they want to talk about when it comes to equity. So whatever the case may be, make sure your technology works for you. This is really great with the whole work from home thing. A lot of people are already set up for this, more so than I was in 2017, but have your dedicated space. If you like using certain headphones, pick those up, etc., and prepare that workspace. So again, we're talking a little bit closer too, but Denise, is there anything else you would add to this, or?
No, I think all of that is key, and yeah, definitely let your employer know, because not only will that help you prepare yourself for that work-life balance and now work-life school balance, it may provide new opportunities for growth in your current employment as well. They know that you're doing this, they know you're furthering your career education wise, so they may have questions themselves, and definitely have that support system, and reach out if you don't feel you do, because there is always somebody there for you.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And, we talk a lot about those fears and what to prepare, etc. So I just want to also kind of spin it a different way, spin it a positive light before we wrap up tonight. And why are you returning? You've been out of school maybe 10 years, 15 years, why take this on now? So a few big points that come up if you read in different articles or watch videos about this. For one, you have an increased motivation now. So this is a professionally driven program. And a question came up, how's this going to help your career? So this is really, you are learning about things that are going to relate to your everyday life now. For me, equity, I was working in undergraduate recruitment at the time. So I was recruiting students, high school students, to come to Western. So it came up all the time with equity. How do I deal with a student who has parents who have been to university, they've been through the process, maybe they have a lot of financial support, versus a first generation student that doesn't have that kind of support system, etc. So, I was always trying to keep those thoughts top of mind. And that's something really new for a master's program, doing it at this age. While you're a professional, you really have that way to relate it. It also inspires the people around you. So keep that in mind, your colleagues, your friends, your family. Going back, it's a brave thing to do. It takes courage. And that's not something to that is something to consider, to be aware of. And it's also creating new opportunities for yourself. So just like Denise mentioned, let people know that this is something you are doing, because it will open those doors, having that graduate degree, but also having done that research, that capstone project. So for a lot of these programs, the final thing that you're producing is some sort of tangible resource that is going to help your organization. It's going to help your team. So get buy-in from those people around you, because it will definitely be worth it. Okay, so I'm going to stop
I need you to go.
the share there. Okay, there was a question. I will actually repeat this just because it's helpful. If anyone here has applied already, when will you be hearing back? So we typically will release decisions within about 6 to 8 weeks of your final documents being submitted. So I'll just add that there. Otherwise, we did pretty good. That's right on 5:30. That wraps up the formal part, but I do want to open the floor to questions. If anyone has questions. Okay, I see a question here from Kevin, which is great. Are there opportunities to cross-pollinate between the streams? Great question. So the streams, unfortunately, they are, that isn't really available, but what I will say is, that being said, a lot of these areas, as you probably notice, have some form of intersectionality. And the reason that we offer the streams that we do at the MPED is because we have faculty members that are experts in that area. So whether they're teaching at the MPED level, or we also have PhD programs, these are your PhD supervisors, etc. So there's always going to be some level of intersectionality. Like, it's not like you're going to look at early childhood education and not consider equity, right, Denise? Like, it's not like, I'm sure that comes into the conversation, right?
And it's like you and I were discussing going on to the doctorate program. You know, it just because you're in one cohort in one stream, it doesn't mean it's shut your doors. There are many more opportunities, even in graduate studies. It's very interconnected. I think it's very fluid.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So there was just a question there about September 2022 session. So that's a great reminder about deadlines. We can chat. So deadlines to apply for September 2021, so this September, are June 30th, with the exception of TESOL, so teaching English to speakers of other language, and applied behavior analysis. Those deadlines were February 1st. For all others, it is June 30th to start this September. So, and you would need to have your program done by this August. If you're thinking about September 2022, that application will open in October of this year. So it typically opens in October, and again, will be open until the spring, depending on the stream you are looking at. Perfect.